oh. Monica, 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 oh Monica, stalking and hawking.
So y'all are good, basically, what you saying?
Well, not good, but we get along good. She's my sister. She's like my cousin. We're all...
Before Dark signed to RCA in the late 90s and landed under the management of Matthew Knowles, the same man managing Destiny's Child. But as Destiny's Child rose, Before Dark disappeared. The label released one album with no follow-up, no tour, no explanation. The group quietly vanished, and no one in the industry said a word. This is the real story of how business decisions, not talent, ended Before Dark before they even started. Matthew Knowles managed two girl groups at the same time, Destiny's Child and Before Dark. Both had label deals. Both were developing in the late 90s, but only one got the full machine behind them. Before Dark signed to RCA Records, Destiny's Child signed to Columbia. On paper, both groups had a shot, but the minute Destiny's Child started climbing the charts, Before Dark's momentum flatlined. Knowles shifted his focus. He doubled down on his daughter's group, investing time, media connections, and full creative control into Destiny's Child. Before Dark, by comparison, barely moved. They had no consistent press, no official rollout, and no tour to support their debut. RCA Records released their album Daydreamin' with minimal push. No national campaign, no late-night appearances. The few radio spins they got came and went. Before Dark went quiet, and Knowles didn't say a word. Industry insiders claim Knowles never intended to launch both groups equally. He was being very strategic with his daughter's group. They believe he signed Before Dark as insurance, a backup in case Destiny's Child fell apart. But once Destiny's Child exploded, he didn't need a plan B.
So there was a strategic plan.
Before Dark got left behind, not because they failed, but because Knowles stopped showing up. Before Dark had everything the music industry claimed to want. Rich vocal tones, seamless harmonies, and the kind of soulful R&B presence that could have set them apart. But RCA Records didn't focus on any of that. Instead of promoting their sound, the label locked in on their looks. The group was styled to appear far older than they were, posed in suggestive ways, dressed in clothes that didn't reflect who they were. Teenagers with raw talent and limitless potential. It wasn't just styling, it was a complete image overhaul. Magazine spreads, photo shoots, music videos, all designed to appeal to adult male audiences, not their peers, not the fans who connected with their message, but a demographic that had nothing to do with their actual music. And that's what hurt the most. Because Before Dark weren't industry veterans. They were young, gifted girls still discovering their voices and figuring out who they were as artists and as people. But instead of nurturing that, RCA wrapped them in an identity that wasn't their own.
We're not bad. We're just like young. We haven't faced all the problems.
The label didn't lean into their strengths. They didn't build around their vocals, their lyrics, or their chemistry. They ignored the music and focused on image. To the public, they became just another girl group packaged and pushed for appearances. But behind that packaging were three talented young women, full of artistry and originality, who were never given the space to let that shine. And once the buzz around their image wore off, RCA didn't invest in developing them further. They didn't reintroduce the group with a stronger musical direction. They didn't pivot. They moved on. The decision to focus on visuals over vocals didn't just distract from what made Before Dark special, it buried them. The talent was always there. The skill was never the issue. But when an industry values image over integrity and marketing over music, even the most promising voices can be silenced. Before Dark didn't disappear because they weren't good enough. They disappeared because the label never gave them a real chance to be heard, not as a brand, but as artists. Colorism crushed their momentum. Before Dark had the talent, the vocals, the stage presence, the choreography. They did everything right, but still got left behind. Why? Because they didn't match the industry's unspoken definition of marketable. They were dark-skinned black girls, proud of their natural beauty and confident in their identity. But the early 2000s pop machine didn't know what to do with that. Back then, lighter skin, looser curls, and racially ambiguous looks sold records. That was the beauty standard, and Before Dark didn't fit it. They didn't get the TRL spots, they didn't get the magazine spreads, they didn't get the same push from the radio. Meanwhile, groups like 3LW and others who aligned more with Eurocentric features were given full campaigns, regardless of whether they had the same vocal ability or not. Labels gave them big styling budgets, TV networks gave them screen time. Before Dark, despite being signed to a major label, RCA, barely got that kind of support. The industry never openly said, "You're too dark." It didn't have to. Colorism works in silence, in how labels prioritize one group over another. It's in the styling meetings, the press runs, the stage lighting choices, the budget cuts, the performance slots that never come. It's in who gets told, "We'll try again next quarter." And for Before Dark, those subtle decisions slowly pushed them to the sidelines. They didn't fall off because they weren't ready. They were blocked because they didn't look like what the system was built to reward. RCA dropped their album, then went silent. In mid-2000, Before Dark released their debut album, Daydreamin'. It should have been their moment. They had the look, the sound, and the buzz. But RCA treated the release like an afterthought. There was no rollout, no tour, no strategy to build momentum. The lead single, Baby, had real potential. Early 2000s R&B bounce, strong vocals, and a music video, but RCA didn't back it. They didn't push a second single. They didn't promote it on the radio. They dropped the album and disappeared. No interviews, no performances, no promo plan, nothing. It was like RCA gave up right as the group hit the starting line. Daydreamin' wasn't a bad album. The harmonies were tight, the production clean. There was room to grow, space to evolve. But that never happened because nobody pushed it. Nobody fought for it. Behind closed doors, there were whispers, internal shakeups, label politics, management drama, but RCA never gave a clear reason, and the group never aired it out. All fans saw was a group with promise, quietly vanished. Before Dark didn't fall off. They were let go and left in the dark. No breakup, just gone. Before Dark didn't disband with drama. There were no headlines, no farewell Instagram posts, no reunion specials years later with the tearful, "Why we split" explanation. They simply disappeared. No follow-up singles, no sophomore album, no guest features, no solo attempts. Just gone. Fans kept asking, what happened to Before Dark? But nobody had a real answer. And that silence made the loss sting even more. Because Before Dark had what it took to win. They could sing, really sing. Their harmonies were tight, their tone rich, their presence undeniable. Baby was a hit, but the Daydreamin' album had deeper cuts, real R&B that could have lasted. There were whispers that they were set to tour, rumors of a second single, hints at longevity, but it all vanished. Behind the scenes, people whispered about label politics, about creative differences, about internal clashes over control. Some say between management and RCA, others say between RCA and the group itself. Still, nothing was confirmed, nothing was ever officially said. And when nothing is said, people assume. Some chalked it up to a one-hit wonder situation. Others believed the label dropped the ball, and a few saw it for what it was, a system that didn't know how to handle young black women with talent that didn't fit the pre-approved mold. Before Dark didn't burn out. They weren't out of their depth. They didn't self-destruct. The industry simply closed the door on them. Mid-sentence, there was no scandal, no crime, no public feud, just neglect, just dismissal, just a quiet erasure of a promising act. In the years since, members have occasionally appeared on social media or in nostalgic throwback posts, reminding fans of a moment that could have become a movement. But there was no comeback, no reformation. They didn't break up. They were broken off by an industry that moved on too fast and cared too little. Life after the spotlight. Before Dark didn't get to leave the game on their own terms. There was no farewell video, no final performance. But silence doesn't mean surrender. They walked away with something more important than a hit record: themselves. Arik Rice didn't disappear from music. She took her voice, the same one that powered Before Dark, and stayed in the game quietly. She went on tour. She backed some of the biggest artists in the world, did adverts, and even sang behind Beyoncé, bringing harmonies to sold-out arenas while staying behind the curtain. She kept doing what she loved, even when the spotlight had moved on.
We combine our famous chicken crispers, buffalo wings, and southwestern egg.
Jenny Rice Gensuk found a different stage. She moved from studio mics to writers' rooms, and she thrived. You've seen her work, even if you didn't know it was hers. Shows like The Game, Blackish, Insecure. She told stories, real ones, funny ones, and maybe in some way, stories that made peace with everything she went through in the music business. Mia Lee Wright chose peace. She didn't chase fame. She let the music world go and embrace privacy. Sometimes that's the strongest decision, to step away completely and heal where no one's watching. They didn't get platinum plaques or Grammy wins, but they found something else: purpose, peace, and direction. The fame left, but they didn't lose themselves. Before Dark wasn't just a moment. They were a beginning. Even if the world didn't stay to watch the rest, they didn't fail. The industry failed them. Before Dark had what it takes: the look, the sound, the talent. 3 voices, real voices, blended like blood. They had the cosigns. They had Matthew Knowles in their corner. They had music that still holds up today. But talent has never been enough in this business. Behind the scenes, decisions were being made, not by the group, but around them. Matthew Knowles turned his attention fully to Destiny's Child. He had a rising empire, and they weren't the priority. RCA packaged Before Dark, but never really pushed them. They were marketed with heavy style, but light support. No tour budget, no marketing campaign with staying power. And when the album finally dropped, it felt like the label had already moved on. And then there's the issue people rarely want to name out loud: colorism. This isn't just their story. It's the story of dozens of talented Black women who were told they weren't right for the moment. But that moment was wrong. They didn't fail. The industry failed them. Now it's time we finally say it out loud.